Hey, this is Missy Hyatt, the Walking Riot, and I say that you need to save with Conrad. Jim Ross told me, you need to go with Conrad. He'll save you money. And he did. You guys helped me out great. And when I refinanced it and paid off everything, I think my payment was only $8 more a month. I probably saved at least over $30,000. They make everything so easy for you. Go to Save with Conrad if you want to refi your mortgage or anything with your mortgage. Just go to Save with Conrad.
Hey guys, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Need to call a timeout real quick here. I wanted to tell your listeners what I've been telling my world listeners for a while now. It's about all the incredible things happening over on adfreeshows.com.
We're kicking off 2023 with an all-new edition of Title Chase as Conrad dives into the moments, memories, and matches of the 10 pounds of silver, the NWA U.S. Heavyweight Championship.
Man, I am doing great. Like my friend Steve Kern likes to say, gratitude is the attitude, and that's where I'm at.
I like it. Well, I had a blast talking about the old WCW Heavyweight Championship with you recently, and we thought, hey, let's get down a rabbit hole about something maybe a little more old school. Tell everybody what you're holding there.
I am holding the 10 pounds of silver NWA United States Heavyweight Championship belt.
We get a peek behind the curtain on an all-new edition of The Insiders as Conrad sits down with former WWE writer and current Impact producer Jimmy Jacobs.
You start to realize that you're one weird interaction with Vince away from being in the doghouse or being fired. Wow. And then you just start to behave in a way to try to not get fired. And then your ideas become ideas in an effort to not get fired. And pretty soon you have a whole bunch of people that are playing to not lose.
No spray tans necessary on our latest premium watch-along event, as Eric Bischoff and Nick Patrick sat down for the first time ever to discuss what really happened in one of the biggest and most infamous main events in history, Starrcade 97.
It's been 25 years since it happened, and this is the first time that we've ever talked about. Nobody came to me that night after the match in the locker room, at the TV the next day. You know, it was just we just moved on from it. You know, and I did what I was supposed to do out of the deal. You know, I don't know what was told in the production meeting, what people were expecting, and you know, I was getting pulled from two different sides.
Hey, that's just a small taste of what Ad Free Shows has waiting for you, including a brand new perk, getting to join in on the live recordings of the shows with 4 levels to choose from. See for yourself why Ad Free Shows is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up now at adfreeshows.com. That's right, sign up today at adfreeshows.com.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm waving at Conrad. Is that funny?
I love it. I love it.
Oh, God. Sometimes you get up drunk.
We've all been there.
I didn't have anything to drink at all New Year's Eve.
Yeah, we're recording this early in the morning on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
What was your New Year's Eve like?
Sitting on that couch in that room in there with a clicker in my hand. I don't know why, because I didn't change channels. I watched football all day.
Me too.
Starting with Alabama, which was a pleasant surprise. I didn't think they were going to lose, but I thought it might be closer than it was because I've seen the opposition play, and they're pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good. Good hard-nosed, hard coach, hard-nosed football team. And then I watched the 2 semifinal games, which I don't know how a football fan could ask for anything more than we were provided on New Year's Eve.
It was unbelievable.
Unreal. I have never had a more enjoyable total day of football in recent memory, or in memory period. A lot of the big games that I enjoyed the most I was at because the OU's in a bowl game. But you know, hey, they played hard. I looked at our team, and I kept waiting for more people to come out, more players. And I said, "Where's all the guys?" That's what we got. So they were shorthanded. Had a lot of guys leaving. transport portals and all that bullshit. And so they put up a good fight, and I'm proud of them for that. And that's where everything in life starts, in my view. It always has for me is effort, and just not taking no for an answer. And they didn't take no for an answer. They just didn't have the horses. So it was a fun trip. I left my house, and my driver picked me up at noon on the Thursday, and we drove down to Orlando from Jacksonville, where I am now, and got back, walked in my door here on Thursday night at midnight, 12 hours. And I couldn't sleep in the car for whatever reason. It was a game. I was still jacked up and thinking, processing, and following the game on Twitter and all that shit, and the stats and everything. And so it was a long but fun day. I'm glad I did it. I didn't miss going to Colorado for Rampage. I would like to have been there, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't something I, kept me awake. I needed a break, and that was a perfect break for me. So it was all good. Good week. You just got to look for things that you like and gravitate to them.
Well said, Jim. Well, something we like here on this program is talking about the good old days of professional wrestling, and today's no different. We're going to be talking about a show, a pretty iconic show, a landmark show for WWE that happened 25 years ago. We're going to be taking a look at the Royal Rumble from 1998. And this, make no mistake, is the year of Stone Cold Steve Austin. If you're watching along with us on YouTube, you see even the pay-per-view poster. It's a shot of the back of Austin's head, and he's got these nails across the top of his head. He looks like the Hellraiser character.
Yeah.
And of course, he was the resident Hellraiser for WWE. We're just 1 month removed from In Your House Degeneration X. We're 2 months removed from the Montreal Screwjob. You can go back and check out episode 192 in the archives if you want to hear about the pay-per-view that preceded this one. But goodness gracious, when you take a look at that show and the way it ends with Owen Hart attacking Shawn Michaels, I thought as a fan at the time, well, that means we're setting up Shawn Michaels and Owen Hart for the Royal Rumble. Instead, we go with The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels in a casket match. We're going to talk about that here on the program today, but do you remember that ever even being discussed? Owen versus Shawn at the Rumble, or even if he got a nice contract, he got a nice attaboy, did Vince just not see Owen as a main eventer at that point?
I think he had already committed to Undertaker for that match.
Okay.
To be honest with you, the plan was that plan things out. And of course, anytime you get near WrestleMania season, you're always thinking about what are we doing with Taker, and how does that fit into the presentation, and what other talents does it affect? And so I think that's the reason, Connie. It's just, Vince had, how could you not have confidence in Owen's ability to make anybody he's wrestling better? Because he made everybody better. That's a great mark of a pro. You make your adversaries or your dancing partners better than they truly are. And Owen could do that with anybody. But I think the Taker and the Taker thing was already in play. So but it got Owen back on TV in a pretty spectacular way. And so I don't think there's any, that was a good move in that respect.
Let's just think for a minute how crazy it all could have been different had it not been an Undertaker match, because I think most everybody knows that the show we're going to be discussing today, yes, it's important because Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to win. Yes, it's important because that means Stone Cold Steve Austin has punched his ticket for WrestleMania. Yes, it's important because Steve Austin is watching, or Stone Cold is being watched by Mike Tyson, who is in the suites here at the Royal Rumble. But that was all sort of planned. That's part of the plan. What wasn't part of the plan is Shawn Michaels spilling over the top rope, falling on the edge of that casket in this casket match with The Undertaker, hurting his back, and WrestleMania is going to be his last show. Nobody would have ever predicted this.
Right.
So the guy who's sort of been your flag bearer for 1996 was Shawn Michaels. And for 97, a lot of that year was about Canada versus the USA. It's sort of Bret Hart's year. And now here you are in late January 1998, and we're going to start thinking we might be without both of those guys Of course, that would have never happened had the casket not been there.
Right.
And it'd been Owen Hart versus Shawn Michaels. It's funny to think where, man, if you just move these pieces a little bit one way or another, it could change everything, right, Jim?
Oh yes, it's a very delicate process, quite frankly. It's all got to make sense, and you got to have a destination. In other words, you don't have Undertaker versus Shawn with no plan for the future. But nobody expected Shawn obviously to get hurt via that casket. So luckily for us, and hats off to Shawn, we got the match in the ring at WrestleMania, which had been the goal all along, was Austin and Shawn. So it was just meant to be. I think sometimes you just don't understand. I don't understand it, the human elements of pro wrestling sometimes, but it was really unique in how that all worked out. And I would say, Conrad, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I'd like to know. It seemed like it worked out for the best at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think if you had it to do over again, you would change much. I mean, certainly Steve Austin's going to become a made man and enjoy higher successes and just benchmarks that nobody ever got as hot as Steve Austin is about to be here. So it's hard for us to say, boy, this should have been different or that should have been different. But selfishly as a fan, I would have loved to have seen more of this cocky, arrogant swagger of Shawn Michaels throughout the rest of 98 and 99. And I know he comes back in 02 and has maybe the best second act in wrestling history. I mean, I really do believe that. But I just think about all the craziness that he could have been a bigger part of. And through the rest of 98, 99, and 2000. And I mean, even WrestleMania 17, what a big show that was. We talk about it all the time. Shawn Michaels is not wrestling on that card. And it's kind of fun to think about what could have been, but it wasn't to be.
Wasn't to be. Bottom line, wasn't to be. But as I said, I think it worked out for the best for everybody at the end of the day. It didn't look like it was going to, but I think it did.
Let's talk about the other thing that's going to really help set the territory on fire, so to speak. Vince McMahon as a heel. Now, I know this had been flirted with once upon a time, and I know Vince had a little bit of fun, but really for a small niche audience in Memphis when he was doing the whole USWA stuff in the early to mid 90s. But now here we are years later. And at this point on the program on the other channel, the heel authority figure is Eric Bischoff. And now it feels like we're going to try that again here with Vince McMahon. And I don't think anybody would argue that Eric Bischoff was a tremendous on-screen character.
Yeah, he was.
Mr. McMahon as a heel character is going to just change the whole company's fortune. Did you feel like when that was first discussed, the idea of making Vince a bad guy character, did you feel like that was maybe copying what WCW was doing a little too much with Eric Bischoff, or did that not even cross your mind?
Didn't even cross my mind. Couldn't care less. Eric was a great on-screen character. There's no doubt about that. You're correct. But to me, it's comparing apples and oranges. I thought from the beginning, because I knew how much Vince enjoyed being the bad guy, and now he could be the bad guy on TV. He could be the bad guy. He could get physical. He trained like a Trojan, so he was in good shape. You know, if that meant something down the road, and it did. So no, I thought it was perfect. It was a perfect timing was good. I've said this before, and I truly believe it, and I mean it. During the height of the Attitude Era, I'd say that Vince McMahon was the number one heel in the WWE. And I also say that in that same conversation of who the top heels were, that Stephanie has to be given some consideration, because she was a tremendous villain. She knew how to play her role. She got that from the old man. But Vince was the top heel in the Attitude Era. And I would debate anybody on that topic.
It's remarkable to see, how quickly the WWE's fortunes are going to change here. Let's just sort of pick up where we left off on the last pay-per-view. Of course, the Raw after In Your House, D-Generation X. Well, Meltzer had this to say. McMahon showed up on yet another in the almost monthly New Look Monday Night Raws on December 8th in Portland, Maine, an even more harder, edgier, strange insider type of show designed to throw out constant shocks a la ECW, complete with Mark Marrow doing an interview before a match with Sal Sincere, calling him a jobber and a jabroni, and explaining that those were terms that were used for guys who were paid to lose. And he says that Sal Sincere was really just a silly marketing gimmick, and everybody knows it's just really Tom Brandy. Shawn Michaels is going to play strip poker, and he's going to be drinking Jack Daniels and smoking a cigar and get down to his underwear and, well, all that stuff. Goldust is going to flash Vader. Sable is going to take off a potato sack and reveal as skimpy a swimsuit as possible. I guess in hindsight, this Monday Night Raw does feel like we're leaning all the way into the Attitude Era. Is this when, and I know it's been criticized, I'm not saying this in a critical tone, I'm just asking questions. In your mind's eye, is this when Vince started to listen to Russo more and more?
Seems like it, doesn't it?
It does from outside.
Yeah, it seems like it. Well, I don't think that, I don't know, but I would doubt, I'd lean on the no side that that this is mostly Russo stuff,
right?
And Vince supported it, and I think my only issue with some of that stuff wasn't the specifics of an individual segment; it was the fact that we had so much of it. So the great or the cool thing that happened 20 minutes ago is now completely in the rearview mirror, and it means nothing. Because it's not responded on. It's not because you're doing something else. So I think there was just too much there for everybody to process, Conrad, and that would be my only critique of that deal. Did I enjoy some of that Mark Marrow and Tom Brandy stuff? It meant nothing to me. I don't think it meant anything to the audience, but it is a piece of the puzzle on that particular show that was a very inside feeling.
Let's also point out that this episode of Monday Night Raw, which is a 2-hour show here, has 14 minutes of in-ring wrestling.
Yeah, horrible.
14
well, Russo never thought that wrestling was that crucial to the success of a pro wrestling product. At least that's my understanding. I'm not trying to start an argument with him. I have no issues with Vince Russo whatsoever.
Me either.
We made peace years and years ago, and which I'm happy and thankful that we have. It's not healthy, folks, to walk around being pissed off at somebody over something as simplistic as a pro wrestling storyline. Come on. But yeah, I think he was never a big fan of the in-ring product, or so it seemed. I might be wrong on that. So that's where I am on that matter. He just was not a big fan, and that's unacceptable in my view. 14 minutes of actual bell to bell, ding to ding on a 2-hour wrestling show is unacceptable in my opinion.
Meltzer would recap saying, during the show, they showed McMahon talking with agents, Gerald Briscoe in particular, trying to give the impression they were plotting to screw Austin out of the title. Since earlier in the show, McMahon called Rocky Maivia the People's Champion. Then at the end, with McMahon in the ring and once again surrounded by agents, Austin, in fantasy to foil the double cross, voluntarily handed the belt to Maivia. Of course, Austin then gave Maivia a Stone Cold Stunner and congratulates him on being the new champ, grabs the belt and walks off. And it's actually a ratings ploy. It's going to be fun. But this is the first time we really see Austin and Rock like this. And of course, the title we're talking about is the Intercontinental title. We're not even to the world title conversation yet. But this does feel like a very big vote of confidence from Vince to Rocky Maivia. I mean, he's just a few months into his heel turn here. This is a guy who earlier, in this same year, 1997 at the time, people are bringing die Rocky die chants. They feel like he's been pushed down their throats. And now once he's got this fresh paint of coat, as Bruce likes to say, as a heel, was Vince sold right away, or was this something that Russo saw value in first?
Well, if you want to know the truth, I think the guy that saw the value in it first was Steve.
Right.
Steve's going to approve who he's going to work with.
I got you.
And he handpicked Rock because he knew that
even as an IC guy, not even a world title guy yet, he already had that amount of respect.
Oh yeah, he thought that they were the two, could easily be the two top guys.
Yep.
And compete for the world title, the WWE and WWF title. But Steve's got it sounds edgy and touchy, I guess. Uncomfortable, maybe better said. But Austin is going to approve who the hell he's going to work with. And you're going to let him approve who he's going to work with. You're going to let him handpick who he wants to work with. Why even cross that bridge? If it's to prove a point that the office still has the power, then that's the wrong piece of logic, in my view, to utilize. So yeah, I'm Austin. I'm sure had something to do with that. But we found out that Rock was easy to dislike by many in the audience. So that's a great heel trait right there. He wasn't Ricky Morton or Ricky Steamboat or any other Ricky you want to say. Ricky, what's that song? Ricky got that number? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so anyhow, it didn't matter. I know that's all the words I know to it. But yeah, I think Austin had a lot to do with the anointing The Rock as his next major dancing partner. And they headlined 17, 19, 15, what did they handle?
15, 17, 19.
15, 17, and 19. Because I called all three of those matches.
Yeah.
And it was great. Great wrestling, great drama, great chemistry. They liked each other. So it was a lot of Austin in that, which we hadn't really considered. But I don't think it was Russo that pointed out to McMahon that Rock had exemplary, extraordinary talents. I think a lot of us saw that. I saw it when I signed him. He was natural, and people loved him. They gravitated to him. His personality was magnificent. It was magnetic. So I think that might be your answer, Conrad. But certainly, Vince had a good eye for talent, for God's sakes. And what was there about Rocky Maivia other than his name that you didn't like?
Right.
Educated, smart, reliable, big, physical, athletic. I'm in.
Well, something else I know you're in on is saving money, and who better to do that with than our old pals at Rocket Money. If your New Year's goals are to manage your budget better and save money, well, you need Rocket Money. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions.
Man, I got to do that. I've been looking at this Rocket Money thing. Conrad, I got to do this. This is too good to not try. So I'm going to try it, and I'll let you know how it goes for me. But what a good idea. Golly. And look at this shit. I look at my credit card bills sometimes, and there are charges on there that I don't even know what they are.
There you go.
I'm not
That's
managing
what this is about.
I'm spending money for no reason.
Dude, it saved me over $200 a month. Let me explain. Truebill, personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and it helps you lower your bills all in one place. It turns out over 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a free trial you never even used. Maybe there's a streaming service you just wanted to watch one show on and you never even went back. Well, Rocket Money will quickly and easily identify your subscriptions for you. Eliminates the guesswork like JR was talking about, where he sees stuff on there, he don't even know what it is. Well, isn't it time you stop paying for the ones you don't want? Rocket Money makes canceling subscriptions as easy as a click of a button. You simply find the subscription you don't want and you press cancel. Bam! Rocket Money will cancel it for you just like that. No more long hold times with customer service or tedious emails.
Oh, God, stop my pain. I did that this weekend, too. I can't find my frigging MasterCard, and my Visa card got compromised. That's a pain in the ass about traveling. Yes. And it's dangerous. So, but man, I'm all over this rocketmoney.com thing. It just makes too much sense. I want to save some money and get rid of some money that I'm not even getting any value for some of these things.
There you go.
It's paid every single month, and it goes. It's not in front of you, so you don't recall it. It's
Out of sight, out of mind. That's right.
That's it, baby.
Listen, over 3 million people have used Rocket Money. Saves the average person about $720 a year. Now, my personal experience, it saved me $200 a month. That's thousands of dollars a year. I discovered that my wife and I both signed up for Hulu. We watch it together, though. She doesn't need a different. We just need one, y'all.
Right, y'all.
Rocket Money made it so easy. I pulled it up. You hit the button, they take care of the rest. I saved thousands of dollars by clicking one button. You can too. Stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions. Manage those expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/JR. That's rocketmoney.com/JR. Come on, y'all. As a friend of mine likes to say, it costs nothing to look. Go to rocketmoney.com/JR.
That's it.
Let's talk about how Vince McMahon now turning heel is really going to impact you. He's been a broadcast partner, or he's been broadcasting the shows since the beginning.
Yeah.
And now we're going to pivot. Meltzer would say the Jim Ross, Jim Cornette first hour announcing team became Ross along with Michael Cole and Kevin Kelly, with Cole and Kelly almost dominating the announcing to the point Ross was strangely quiet, to the point he could be compared with Bruno Sammartino's roles in his last. However, Ross was as lively as usual in the second hour during the announcing with Jerry Lawler. So listen, I know that people read that and they probably think, oh, JR must have not liked Michael Cole. I knew it. JR
or Kevin Kelly.
Kevin Kelly.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a little silly. Like, I think it's more of a dynamic of it's a 3-man team versus a 2-man team and just familiarity. Is that not right? I mean, there's no way this was personal for you.
I can add something to that. It's a 3-man team of play-by-play guys.
There you go.
So your dancing, your rhythm is already off kilter.
Right.
So for me to lay out more than normal on that first hour with 2 other play-by-play guys sitting beside me, who both are young and trying to move their way up the ladder and improve their lot in announcing life, it was the thing to do. I thought, give those guys some space and let them do their thing, and I'd jump in here, there, and yon, because I never thought that was a long-term solution. I don't really know why we did it, but that was assignment. So you go do what you're booked. I've got booked to be with those 2 guys, and that's fine with me. I filled my booking. But there's no doubt business picked up when Lawler came out. That was a whole different chemistry, whole different feel, different sound, different energy. So it was unique to say the least. But Mr. McMahon becoming a heel had positive effects on my career.
Right. Well, the interrogator is going to come out repackaged as Kurgan, and he's going to use the Iron Claw and Flash Funk. He's going to get DQ'd afterwards for not releasing the grip. I mean, listen, this feels like one bad idea after another. Was Kurgan doomed from the start? I mean, here's a giant. It feels like we could have, maybe it's a different time, different place, his timing, everything. Why didn't Kurgan hit more?
I don't know. He didn't connect with the audience. It's one thing. He didn't have a natural allotment of charisma. He was a wonderful human being. I mean, if it was up to me, he'd always have a job there as a wrestler. And he also was a real good singer. He's probably the king of karaoke. A lot of people don't know that. Kurgan, the king of karaoke. So, but he was a nice man. Canadian fella. Robert Mallet. I don't remember that name. I didn't remember what I needed for lunch yesterday. So, but he was a nice man and a good guy, and just never was able to connect. He had a wonderful look, reliable, all the good things you want. He just didn't have any charisma that was significant to merit him being in a main event scenario.
Let's talk again about, in all these winds of change, we've also got some character changes. We just debuted Kane in October, so a couple months prior to what we're discussing in December of 97. And I think most people sort of saw this as like, a one-shot deal. This is going to be, you think back to the feuds the Undertaker had. all right, how's he going to overcome this guy? And he beats him. And then, well, like in the territory days, they just go away. Well, that didn't wind up being the case. This became one of the most prolific stories in WWE history. And Kane, the guy who played Kane, was talented enough to turn it into a whole doggone career.
Yep.
But we've also got another character in transition. We debuted Mankind in 1996, a year prior here. Now in 1997, we've also introduced the world to Dude Love and even Cactus Jack. But once we've established all three characters, we continue to see Dude Love here on two separate occasions, back-to-back weeks, getting destroyed by the New Age Outlaws. Did you know that we're always going back to Cactus Jack? I mean, we tried all the different faces of Foley, and we know what's the reason this New Age Outlaw creative exists is because we're going to bring Terry Funk in, and I'm excited to talk about that. But did you think Vince would ever land on Cactus Jack being, all right, this is the final version? But I only ask that because we've heard this narrative out there, Jim, that Vince doesn't like if it's not his creation, he won't get behind it. And I think the Mankind character was great, but you and I probably both really enjoyed Cactus Jack first.
I did.
Did you think that there would be a chance that Vince would settle on Cactus being the character?
Oh, I haven't really thought of it in that regard, to be honest with you. I think it was probably the most versatile of the three characters. The Dude Love character was entertainment for Vince. Vince was always entertained by Dude Love, as were a lot of people. And Mick had fun doing it. It kind of let me up for a second. And he was a sympathetic and beloved character, even in all those incarnations. He had a great fan base. He sold lots of merch. He sold books. He was popular. And so they used Mick in the New Age Outlaws illustration, for example, as a way to get heat on heels. And then, of course, you got down the road, as you alluded to. Here comes Terry Funk, Chainsaw Charlie, to give Mick a hand.
It's fascinating to see how the Terry Funk thing comes to be. He wrote in his book, Jim Ross, the great announcer who would come to the WWF and had become Vince's right-hand man, was the one who gave me the call. I'm pretty sure Cactus had promoted to him and Vince the idea of us working together, but hell, if they didn't want me at all, they wouldn't have called. I'm sure you were tickled to be able to pick up the phone and call Terry Funk. How does this whole character come to be? Because we know he's not just coming back as Terry Funk. I guess if Cactus is doing all these different personas, he wants to do one too. Chainsaw Charlie is what we're going to get. What do you remember of all this?
Well, I think I'm not going to be surprised, and I can't tell you anything otherwise, that was Terry's idea to be Chainsaw Charlie. I think Chainsaw Charlie was a creation of Terry Funk's creativity.
Yes.
Who the hell else would have come up with Chainsaw Charlie with what do you wear, a nylon stocking over his face?
Yes, with baby powder.
Yeah, that's Terry. But when you get a talent like Terry Funk, first of all, for me as a lifelong fan, and as somebody that had refereed Terry Funk's matches in the 70s, because Cowboy brought him in as a bounty hunter in a big program in Mid-South, and I refereed some of those matches, and he was unbelievable in those days. As good as I ever saw. And so heavy heel, wasn't afraid of heat, and great promos that were real. They weren't, just outlandishly over the top to where you roll your eyes and say, "Oh shit, here's none of those wrestling promos." He was just tremendous. But I think he came up to Chainsaw Charlie, but for a guy like me that's been a fan all his life and been around Terry for multiple decades, it was an honor to have a job that I could call him and say, "We want to hire you.
Right.
I got work for you if you're interested." And of course, he was interested. He loved Mick, and all of us older guys. And I read about it every day. When's JR going to quit? When's JR going to get off the air? Well, I got no timeline on this thing. I know when my agreement with Tony Khan is up, but does that mean I'm not going to continue? No. Does that mean that I'm going to, at that point, make the final decision that, hey, I've had enough. I'm tapping.
Right.
I'm going to work less hours. I'm going to work less travel. I'm not going to fly every week, whatever it may be. It's still to be determined. But the older you get, you don't pass up on those opportunities. And Terry, I think, was that way. He wanted to make the paydays. He got him back on TV. He got to be around the boys who loved him. It's like Uncle Terry. And he was so good and so helpful in the locker room. That's the benefit you get out of a guy like Terry Funk that you don't out of a lot of other guys you could bring in that were less experienced and less motivated. Terry was always very motivated. He wanted to steal the show and he wanted to work main events and by God, he deserved it. So I was really lucky to be in that role to be able to bring him in and it's like hiring one of your heroes.
Right.
It's like hiring Mickey Mantle to be the DH.
That'll work.
So that kind of illustration is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. But anyway, it was a great time. I always enjoyed working with him. The only thing he had to do to Terry was sometimes settle him down because he was too wild. He took too many unnecessary chances. And but God bless him for his spirit and his character and his integrity. I think about him a lot to this very day, a lot.
I'm excited to talk about the next angle that we see on Monday Night Raw. Of course, the prior week, we end the show with Stone Cold running off with the Intercontinental title, even though he's quote unquote forfeited it to The Rock. Well, the next week we see Austin quote unquote return the title to The Rock, but the way he does it is by appearing on the Titantron and throwing the belt off the bridge. This is such an iconic moment in wrestling history. And Bruce has told the story that in actuality, it's an old tag belt that you're throwing off. And some yahoo went out there and went fishing for it and brought it to the company and tried to sell it back to them or something.
I didn't know that.
But I just love the idea that you really did throw a belt. Now, granted, it's not the actual Intercontinental, but what a fun idea. This is, I don't know. It makes me think of Jack Briscoe when he wasn't wanting to be the world champ anymore and took his watch and threw it off the bridge. Well, now we're throwing doggone Intercontinental titles off the bridge. Really good creative here.
Yeah, it was good. Good stuff. Brought a lot of attention to it. It was a unique way to get Austin still back in front of that camera. And it was kind of, even though it wasn't a new angle, people throwing things off bridges, as you alluded to, is nothing totally new, but it was new to our audience. Or at least most of the audience is my way of thinking. So it was very timely. It worked. Here's the bottom line, Conrad. It worked.
The other thing that I'm curious how you felt it worked is the destruction of the Legion of Doom. This is the same episode of Monday Night Raw where in the main event, LOD would get a win over DX by DQ because China interfered. But what everyone remembers is what happened afterwards. They're going to powerbomb LOD through the announce table. They're going to shave Hawk's head. This is a big time angle and something that for years and years, the Road Warriors had a reputation for not being super cooperative or willing to quote unquote do business. And at times they could be selfish and all the other words that are out there. But goodness gracious, they're all in on this one. Were you pleased with this? Were they pleased with this? Was this something in talent relations you're having to really sell and work on? Talk me through that.
No, and here's why. They were older. When you were remembering back to the stubborn LOD, they were young and they were holding most of the cards. During this period of time, they were older. They had their share of injuries. They weren't the same guys.
Right.
And so you're trying to give them a reason to get that new coat of paint and fix those dents in the bumper, whatever. So it was, I had no problem with it. They needed something to freshen them up or we need to get rid of them.
Right.
And, that probably wasn't the thing to do. It wasn't the thing to do. They still have marquee value on your cards. We're still in a live event business. And for LOD to be in Des Moines or Wichita or wherever it may be, still was an attraction and it still meant something. But they needed that proverbial fresh coat of paint, and that angle seemed to provide that.
Well, the other thing we get is a little bit of pushback for some of the controversy of late. We've had Shawn Michaels calling Owen a nugget as if he was an unflushable turd.
Yeah.
We've also seen Shawn grab his wiener in this strip poker angle, and we've had Goldust and Luna dressing up in S&M type gimmicks. You're old school, Jim, and I understand, we got to grow with the times and we got to be nimble in business, and we can't. I mean, I get all those little catchphrases, but was part of you worried, man, are we alienating our sponsors or part of the fan base? Are we pushing it too far? And if you did get there, was there one angle or one moment in particular where you thought, okay, now that might be too much?
Well, you make a turd a television character in the Nugget.
Yeah.
I think that's a good illustration of what are we doing?
Right.
So yeah, the thing about it was, it's the same thing I said earlier. Doing something in the show that's edgy and controversial is one thing, but doing 3 or 4 more other controversial things, all it does is water down what you've already laid on, put on tape. In other words, too much. Let it soak in. Let the audience process it. Let the announcers talk about it. Let it become something significant. We rushed everything. And also, so if you're going to go that way and feed it a little bit at a time, but don't forsake. We had great wrestlers, Conrad. We had some guys that bell to bell were just phenomenal. And all those skits and all that talking took away from what they did best. I thought that was a mistake.
Well, the WWF is going to fire its own preemptive strike, according to Dave Meltzer. They're going to have a short interview taped by Vince McMahon that Meltzer is going to freestyle, perhaps happened earlier in the day. And he's basically saying that we're going to have to approach wrestling fans in a more contemporary manner. And he's trying to compare the programming with music videos or soap operas or Jerry Springer or Seinfeld or King of the Hill. And he's trying to get pro wrestling, with the sports entertainment term being used, positioned as more entertainment. He wants, maybe Meltzer's freestyling, wider latitude of what is acceptable. So it doesn't necessarily get positioned as, well, this is a sporting event. And of course, I'll never forget seeing this as a fan. And I remember him saying something along the lines of, we're not going to insult your intelligence, where it's good guys versus bad guys. And he used this maybe condescending tone. And when he said that, is this, in your opinion, the first official company acknowledgement of quote unquote attitude?
I think it is in my memory. Yeah, I think so. It was very public and very out there and very unique. We straddled a fine line there, it seemed like, but yeah, I think that was the first public admission that things are a changing.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think, that really overnight it felt like wrestling was just different. And one of those things is we start to adjust maybe how far we were going. Instead of calling Billy Gunn badass Billy Gunn, we call him BA. And we know that's not going to stick, but I do find it interesting that it feels like at times, are we trying to wear two hats? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Are we trying to
serve two masters?
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, we were trying to serve two masters. You didn't want to totally piss off all your advertisers.
Yes.
Obviously. They're paying the tab. Somebody's got to pay the tab, Conrad. You've played plenty of tabs, and you know how that goes. So do I. Oh, JR, take care of that. Conrad, you got this?
Yeah, you know the deal.
You know that I got it. So serving two masters is hard.
It is.
Especially like in relationships. So what that means, kids, if you're listening, is that means that daddy's got a girlfriend and he's still got mommy.
Uh-oh.
And that ain't gonna work.
Right.
That's a bad daddy. So anyway,
I don't know why that tickled me, but it did. I find it interesting that, all right, maybe USA doesn't like the term badass for one of their characters, so we'll call him BA Billy Gunn. But by God, we're going into this kicking and screaming, because the next week We're going to do Raw from Lowell, Massachusetts. It's the last televised show of 1997. And there is a segment where Shawn and Hunter remove all of their clothing with an exception of, well, thong underwear. And they reveal the words Merry Christmas written over their respective ass cheeks. This feels as if this is almost Vince and Vince, maybe it's Russo and McMahon, sort of poking the bear a little bit with, okay, we can't say ass. Well, here's a couple of them.
Yeah. Well, I didn't find it funny. I didn't find it entertaining. It didn't strike home for me as a creative, as a comedic creative piece of material. It's just, I didn't think it was good. And especially when you got two of your biggest stars, two Hall of Fame guys, this is where we are. But, they're having fun. So they're not going to turn down TV time, even in a unique way like that. They're just not. So Vince had, he just full speed ahead, man. And so everybody get a laugh out of it before the show, and here's what we're going to do and all that. So that's why I never wanted to know what we're doing tonight type thing. I didn't want to sit there all day and be pissed off at what are we doing this?
Right.
I don't want to be in that mood before, going into a show. I want to see it, feel it, call it. And I just think that works best for me. It may not work best for everybody that does this job. So anyhow, yeah, I didn't think it was funny at all.
Meltzer's going to say that he's got some issues with the in-ring presentation, in that on the wake of the Bret Hart fiasco with the Survivor Series, you've had two of the three remaining top stars, Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels, drop their titles without either doing a job. Of course, the issue here is, at least in storyline, or, we just handed a guy a belt in the way we did the whole Rock handoff with the Intercontinental title. But we do the same thing with Shawn and Hunter for the European title. I mean, I kind of don't think anybody really was even paying attention or cared much about the European title. It felt like, all right, this is a nice idea as a one-off for Bulldog.
If they didn't care about it, they're sure as hell not going to care about it now.
No, definitely not.
Handing and passing and the passing the torch means you got beat.
Right.
Somebody beat you for that prize that you're so gallantly holding on to. But just taking a title from somebody and anointing it to another never works. I'm trying to think back where it really worked, really flip the switch. I can't. So it's not a good time-tested way to address your championship, in my opinion.
Well, the other thing I wanted to ask about is the way they do the Shawn Michaels switch. So we sort of talked about the whole angle where Rock's going to, just have the belt relinquished to him, but then Austin steals it, throws it off a bridge. All right. Okay. I'm with that. But the way Sergeant Slaughter sort of announces, hey, Shawn, you got to defend that European title, or you're going to be stripped of it. And he's going to wrestle, wink, wink, Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And they do a mock slow motion match. And Meltzer would describe it as saying, imagine this, an overtly fake pro wrestling match, ending with Michaels literally laying down for Helmsley and getting up and crying mockingly, saying how sad he was for losing the title, and Slaughter vowing not to be made a fool of. All right, well, you're going to have to defend that title against Owen Hart at the Nassau Coliseum. I know we get to a match, but again, I go back to the old school and you having an overtly quote unquote fake match. Where does that land with you?
It didn't land. It's still out there in Uranus somewhere.
Yeah.
It's in another galaxy far, far away from my thinking. It's a grasp at entertainment. It's a grasp at being attitudinal. It's a grasp at independence. It's a grasp that we're going to be the guys that change things. And there's nothing wrong with being the guys that change things. Just the changes are for the better.
Right.
I'm not so sure this could ever be considered for the better.
Well, I'll tell you what is better, and that's our friends at BetterHelp. I want to make it clear here that today's episode of Grilling JR is brought to you by BetterHelp. That's right. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Folks, here's something you probably already know. Relationships take work. And a lot of us will drop anything to go somewhere, help someone we care about. We'll go out of our way to treat other people well. But y'all, how often do we give ourselves the same treatment? Well, this month, BetterHelp Online Therapy wants to remind you to take care of your most important relationship, the one you have with yourself.
Amen.
Whether it's hitting the gym, making time for your haircut, even trying therapy, remember you are your greatest asset. So invest the time and effort into yourself like you do for other people. I had to do this for myself back in 2006. I had a relationship come to an end, and I wasn't really sure how to sort all that out in my head. It was awesome to just be able to talk to someone else, someone who wasn't in my circle, not a friend, not a family member, not someone I worked with, and just get third-party, unbiased advice. Learn some new coping skills. Well, that's why I believe in BetterHelp. You see, BetterHelp is online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, meaning you don't even have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and y'all, you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. So give it a try and see why more than 2 million people have used BetterHelp online therapy.
That's all you need to know right there, folks. 2 million have tried it. So
Yeah.
it must be working for somebody really well that need the help.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Grilling JR with Jim Ross listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/JR. That's betterhelp.com/JR. That's BetterHelp.com/JR. And we want to thank them for sponsoring today's podcast. This is a vibe right here, isn't it, Jim? It's music.
I'm vibing.
Yeah.
That's why I have my hands below the screen.
Just in case.
I have the bottoms. I have my pockets. The bottoms cut out of my pockets. So never mind.
Hey, let's talk about. Lord bless you for that. Let's talk about Shawn Michaels. Meltzer really had, for lack of a better word, a hard on for Shawn about never dropping belts. He would always complain that, he's finding excuses to not do business and to drop the belt, not drop the belt. And he lost his smile in 97. And now here in the same building where he announced he lost his smile and forfeited the world title, he's just going to give the European title as a joke to his friend. And a lot of people, according to Meltzer, are upset about that. Now, you're running talent relations at the time. Do you remember anybody complaining about Shawn being difficult to do business with when it came to dropping titles?
I got complaints about Shawn from talents all the time.
Yeah.
Pretty much on a daily basis. But the talents also knew that Shawn had such a connection with Vince that they could only push that issue so far. And then it runs into Vince's judgment call, and you're basically telling Vince you're making a huge mistake. You don't know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, almost on a daily basis, it seemed like somebody had something to say. And I'm surprised that we didn't have more issues than we did, to be honest with you.
At this point, he had held 9 titles during his WWF tenure, and he had lost the belts in the ring twice. He lost his smile. He walked out after his fight with Brett. Him and Diesel just broke up. He quit while he was the IC champion. He got beat up in a bar. Over and over and over, there was an issue. And the issues keep coming, man, because the Lowell show was taped 2 weeks ahead of time. But in the meantime, you guys do a couple of house shows, one in Memphis and one in Little Rock. And there's a near riot in place in Memphis, and it's all because of Shawn Michaels. It's supposed to be DX, which is Hunter and Shawn, taking on Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett, the hometown favorites here in Memphis. But it's the Little Rock show where an actual riot took place.
Uncalled for, embarrassing, uncalled for, and extremely bullshit. Minor league bullshit. They did it because they could. And for me, having my boyhood hero, Danny Hodge, who could whip both their asses in about 10 minutes or less, was there being honored to the fans that are there, because Hodge had been a major star in that territory forever. And he got me in the business. He got me hooked in the business as a fan.
Right.
And so, I loved the guy. And so when I heard all that happened and people were it was just getting abused, and it was just horrible. There's nothing good. Why would you do it?
Right.
Because you can. And we're attitudinal. It's the attitude era. You don't get it. It's a different generation. I heard the other day, I was listening to, I like listening to Busted Open. It's one of my favorite shows. I listen to it a lot around the house. And a caller called in and said, should Tony Khan use JR to help get a reconciliation from CM Punk and the Bucks, etc.? And Tommy Dreamer said it would never work because JR's from a different generation, which happens to be one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard Tommy say. And I like Tommy. I've hired Tommy. He's a lifer. So I'm not mad at Tommy. I'm just shocked that he would say something so ridiculous. Human nature doesn't have a generational timeline. It just doesn't. Management is management. Communication is communication. I've probably talked more about communication in the term communication on this podcast than anybody in your ad-free network.
Yeah.
Communication is a key to marriage, dating, business. You got to communicate. And so it kind of bothered me that it's thought of that, well, because I'm older, it's not, my generation wouldn't understand how to address those issues, which I totally say bullshit too. So, but that's off topic, but nonetheless, it's just the way I feel. It's popped in my head. So there you go. That's a good headline for you guys looking for something on your websites.
Let's, what's the, what you address the whole riot thing and that it was Bush League, it was amateur, they were immature, blah, blah, blah. Is there punishment in place? Do you call Vince and say, geez, Vince, what are we going to do? Or is Vince just sort of giving Shawn a pass for any and everything at this point?
Yeah. I'm not going to die on that hill because I knew I was going to lose.
Right.
So no, there was no fines or punishment doled out that I can recall. I remember talking to those guys, and I think it basically was a situation where things got out of hand.
Right.
And at least that's how I interpreted their explanation. Because I know both guys as Hall of Fame guys, they're not going to dislike Hodge. My God, he's one of the pioneers in wrestling.
Right.
So it was very frustrating. I think I understand, and I bought their explanation. It went farther than we had planned.
Right.
And they couldn't draw it back.
So The Rock gets transferred over from his program with Austin to Ken Shamrock, and Rock Shamrock becomes one of those programs that really helps elevate The Rock. And it's funny because we take a look at this graphic, especially if you're watching over on YouTube. This to me felt like, man, if Shawn's going to have to go away, you slide the Undertaker and Steve Austin into that, and there's your 4 top stars. We've talked about the fact that, you just didn't feel like Ken Shamrock was reliable, at least at this point. Had that reared its head, or did you still think he's headed the same trajectory that The Rock is? Now, of course, we know The Rock went on to be much, much bigger, but it felt like once upon a time, man, Ken had his opportunity.
Yeah, I like Kenny. I still like him. Some guys are good travelers.
Yes.
And some guys aren't.
Right.
Some guys are socially mature and balanced, and some guys aren't. And some guys grow into that role and become better travelers, better teammates, better locker room guys, et cetera, et cetera. But Kenny was like a winter wonderland. The ladies liked Kenny, and Kenny liked the ladies, and he battled that. If that's a battle, I don't know. So, but he needed to prove himself a little bit longer on that reliability aspect. But as far as talent, shit, he's ready made to be a main event guy.
No doubt about it.
I wish things had worked out better for him, because I did like him. I still like him. He's a tough son of a gun. You got to respect guys like him. So I wish I had worked better. But thank God we had him. I'm really happy we had Ken Shamrock with us at that point in time. We needed him, and he delivered.
One of the dance partners you have in mind is Dan Severn. It's in the Observer that he's verbally agreed to terms, and he's going to be coming in. Somebody who's leaving, though, is Crush. He gives his official release, or has given his official release. Meltzer would say he was legitimately injured in the Kane deal, as Kane accidentally dropped him wrong, and he ended up really upset over a situation with management and told some people off that pretty much paved the way to be the end of his tenure. I don't remember hearing about this at the time. What do you remember about Crush maybe getting out of bounds a little bit, and that was it?
Reliability becomes the issue again. You know, he had a great look, did Brian, and had the ear of the Undertaker. They're real close friends, and Undertaker takes care of his friends. You got to hand it to the guy. So, but Brian just never had the it factor. It's my opinion. I might be wrong on this. Bruce knew him better than me. Bruce knew him real well. They hung out together some, as I recall. But I didn't ever see the intangible, that it element. But size, athleticism, look, good-looking guy, a great personality. But, you know, he had his little secrets and his little demons, and at some point in time, they always catch up with you. And they did to him, too.
Let's talk a little bit about the next big show. We're back live now, a few days after Christmas at the Nassau Coliseum. It's December 29th. And even though there's only 20 minutes of in-ring action in a 2-hour show, Meltzer would call it one of the best Raws in a long time. And part of that is because it's a hot crowd, man. 11,243 people paying $271,000. That is an all-time gate record for Monday Night Raw, and it's a legitimate sellout at the Nassau Coliseum. We're just a handful of months removed from you guys running 4,000 seaters, and now we're 11,000 sold out, $271,000, the biggest gate in Raw history. At this point, though, you're still playing catch-up ball on Monday nights to Nitro. Was that something that was talked about a lot, or were you just focused on your own business and what they were doing was not as important?
Conrad, you look at my schedule, you and I've talked about this, from booking live events to hiring talent to managing talent, doing the payroll, getting these big boys paid every week on time. I had no time, and certainly without sounding crass or arrogant, I had no interest in what was going on in Atlanta, because A, it's just going to take time away from my real job, and B, I cannot find myself, and I used to. This is a bad trait. I've broken that habit of getting involved or getting emotionally invested in something I can't control or change.
Right.
Can't fix it. So I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. If there's, you know, the fact that they were on the air at the same time we were, reduced that, you know, opportunity to watch TV. And, you know, we're still moving into that age of digital where you can say, hey, get me a tape or send me a link to last week's Raw.
Right.
You know, things just weren't quite available for all of us in that regard yet. But man, I didn't have time. I didn't have time to I had responsibilities that had to be done, not optional. If a talent doesn't get a check on time, they freak out.
Yes.
They freak out. And I never let that happen, ever. Even when I was sick and doing payroll from home, or I was doing the payroll when Laurinaitis was supposed to be doing it, I was still doing it. They never were late on getting paid. We took care of the families, and that was always a priority to me. It's just old school. It's how I was raised, how I got into business. So, you know, so that's where that lies, Connie.
You and I were talking on New Year's Day. What do you think Johnny Ace is doing to celebrate New Year's?
I don't know. I haven't given him a lot of thought lately. I heard he's looking for work.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be something Tony Khan hired him?
Oh my God.
That'd be funny.
No. What's that line in Talladega Nights? Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah, that's right. My leg.
Meltzer points out this show is full of angles, including Goldust dressed up as the New Year's baby in a diaper and a large bottle. Stone Cold's going to come out and put him in the old porta potty. And then he turns it over with Goldust in it. I'm sure he loved, "This is such good shit, pal." Of course, this is the episode where we first tease that there's going to be negotiations going on with Iron Mike Tyson. And Meltzer is going to say this is a pathetic ratings ploy because of the way it was handled. And we know that, well, it's going to pay off in a big way. At any point, did you think in these preliminary discussions with Mike Tyson's group, did you think he would actually get in the ring and wrestle a match, like whether it was a tag match or whatever? Did you think that was a possibility?
No, I thought he'd be a bodyguard type, a one-punch knockout kind of a guy.
There you go.
And that's all I need to see him throw a right hand, and I'm good. So, but we negotiated and discussed this opportunity with Mike seemingly forever, because I had a lot of time with Mike, because Vince said we're going to bring Tyson in, and because Shane McMahon babysat Tyson a lot, and when he wasn't available or he was busy doing something, whatever the case may be, OJR got that distinction, and so we developed a good relationship. And when he's been back with his occasional appearances in AEW, I've always enjoyed it because we talk about the old times. A lot of fans don't realize Mike Tyson could win a lot of trivia contests from wrestling in New York wrestling in the 60s and the 70s, 80s.
No doubt.
He's really, really brilliant, and he loved it. It meant something to him. He remembers it. He studied it. So he was a legit fan, and I always respect Mike for that.
We also got to talk about Dude Love doing an interview where he's going to transform into Mankind and then into Cactus Jack. And Meltzer would say, real interesting in New York to see zero reaction to Dude Love and a huge pop when he switched to Cactus Jack. Jack ends up fighting with both of the New Age Outlaws, winding up in a short singles match with Road Dogg ending in a DQ when Billy Gunn interfered. And he dragged him to the back, and there's a big box. And as they fought, a chainsaw was sawing its way out of the box. And there was a chant of Terry almost immediately, because it was not exactly a secret that Funk was debuting on the show. Funk came out wearing a stocking and was called Chainsaw Charlie, and the announcers never used the name Terry Funk. He chased the Outlaws around with the chainsaw, basically doing the Leatherface gimmick from Japan. And listen, Bruce has had a lot of fun with this over the years, saying that it was Jim Cornette who really pushed to have Terry Funk come out of a box, because, as he explained,
God damn it,
out of a box. Yes. Anybody who comes out of a box is instantly over.
God damn, it's fucking idiots don't understand that, Connie. Shit.
What'd you think of the execution of Funk in a box?
I loved it.
I did too.
I loved it. I saw a friend of mine get work. I saw one of the greatest entertainers and pro wrestlers of all time on our roster in our locker room. I saw talents gravitate to him that wanted to ask him a question or whatever, converse, get to know him. Just, I thought it was a hit. I thought it was a hit. Now, I didn't know if it was going to be a on top of the card main event hit.
Right.
That's a special anointment, but certainly, he contributed big time. And I think that matter, that whole thing was a little short lived. I think we could have got more mileage out of it.
I totally agree. Jim Cornette's going to do an interview and set up his traditional wrestling interpromotional feud with the WWF. And of course, Meltzer says he's got tremendous delivery and he cut a great promo. And there is some truth as far as it being his personal beliefs for most of what he said. Meltzer would say, I believe the idea actually came because Cornette was complaining so much about the current direction internally, they decided to make an angle out of it. Is that the way you remember that?
Yeah, pretty much. That's the genesis of the concept. It came from those writers' meetings. Those creative meetings where Corny would go on a tangent, and a tangent might not be a good word, but Tony would get on Corny would get on his soapbox and express himself.
Right.
And so that's where that whole thing came. And I thought some of those segments are really entertaining.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the segments, but I do think in hindsight it may have been snake bit just because of the letters NWA. I wonder, had we tried this same angle of Cornette cutting promos and doing some interpromotional feud or whatever, clearly that's working on the other channel with the NWO stuff, but I can see that working here. But I just feel like when we say NWA, it kind of dies. Am I?
Well, there's something to be said for that. That brand has been resurrected and pronounced dead so many times, it's almost you don't pay attention to it any longer. But the NWA didn't have any magic,
right?
And utilizing it in the story, I don't know that did it a lot of favors based on where the perception was at that time of the NWA. It wasn't going to return from the dead, no matter how hard we all tried.
Do you think, since we're talking about the NWA and you said, you kind of forget about them sometimes, do you think there's anything at this point in 2023 that Billy Corgan can do to garner some attention for the NWA? I know you and I are both big fans of guys who are lifelong fans and putting their money where their mouth is and investing a lot of cash and passion. And I think we both respect Billy for that, but
without a doubt,
it is a huge uphill battle right now to try to compete. You got all this other great stuff out there, whether it's Impact or Ring of Honor or AEW or NXT or WWE. Is it possible to breathe new life into the NWA, do you think?
It's possible, but it's a long shot. It's possible. Pro wrestling and the successful companies are built around two things: talent and television.
Yes.
One without the other ain't going to get you to the pay window. So if they can get some talent in there on a consistent basis and get them over, I suggest your younger guys, push them to the moon. I saw where Ricky Morton's son was going in there, and a talent like that is kind that you look for and get them over.
Yeah.
They're young and all this other stuff. So get them over. So yeah, it's possible, Conrad, but it's not going to be easy. So talent and television. If Billy can solidify his television, or I know where I can find it on a regular basis, then that gives me pause for optimism, quite frankly. But you got to have talent and television in concert, or it's just not going to work. It's not going to work at all, especially the TV and talent too. But it's daunting. Let's say that. Let's use that as a nice word. It's daunting, and I hope for one guy, I hope Billy makes it. I like Billy.
Me too. Well, I'll tell you what else we like, and we like spending time with our family. And let me recommend Camper Max, specializing in the max discounted pricing on travel trailers and fifth wheel RVs that can be delivered anywhere in the lower 48. Make that a New Year's resolution. Spend more time building memories with the family this year and hit the road, Jack. And we're going to make it easy for you. Go to campermax.com from your office, your cell phone, or your doggone couch. They'll bring it to you. How about that? So click or call and find out how easy it is to start enjoying the RVing lifestyle. Now, how easy is it? Well, the Camper Max discount will fit any budget. They offer easy financing with extended terms. Visit campermax.com. That's camper, MAXX.com. There's two X's in Max. Campermax.com. Or give them a shout, y'all. 256-320-7033. Rod Wagner has been a long-time close personal friend of mine. If you've heard about us and my crew going to a pay-per-view or some event in an RV, Rod hooked it up. He's going to hook you up too. So if you're looking to purchase a motorhome, hang in there. My buddy Rod is working on that now. Maybe you're looking to get out of yours. We can help you with that too. But if you've really thought about making some new memories with the family in 2023 and want to make it a priority, we recommend you check out Camper Max, home of the max discount. That's campermaxx.com, campermax.com. Let's talk about the next piece of business that we get here. Of course, we know the disastrous NWA run is on the way, but we do listen to me, a set of taping.
I did it earlier today. It's great.
I did too, right before we clicked record.
Yeehaw!
It's wonderful. We did that together, just like you and I went to different schools together.
That's right.
There's a dark match tryout for Paul Roma. I want to say that again, y'all. This is, no kidding, 1998, and we're doing a dark match tryout for Paul Roma. The former Four Horsemen gets a couple of matches and never brought back. Of course, we recall he was one half of Power and Glory, and one of my, guilty pleasures. I liked that tag team, but he doesn't get another look here. Just these two matches and adios. What'd you think of Paul Roma here in 1998?
Great body, nice guy, no charisma.
Oh, okay.
That's your answer. He's fundamentally sound. He just didn't connect with the audience enough to make the old man happy.
All righty. Didn't expect that, but there it is, baby. We start to see seeds of dissensions in the nation are growing with Rock and Farouk. They're both trying to act like they're the leaders, and Kama and D'Lo are having a tough time. It always leads to them losing matches to Ken Shamrock. And this is one of those slow build storylines that really get over great. In real life, Ron, any issue about him maybe being transitioned out from being a leader, or did he not take it too seriously? And as long as the check's cleared, I'm good with it.
That latter part covered it all.
There you go.
He was working for a payday and earned as much as he could. And the way he did that was to perform at a high level. He did that. He knew what his job was. His job was to accentuate and embellish the Rock's TV persona. I thought that Ron Simmons did a great job in that respect. That was his assignment, and he pulled it off.
Something we couldn't pull off, though, is Cornette coming out with Dennis Corluzzo and Howard Brody, the president and vice president of the NWA. They're going to mention old great champions like Luthez and Harley Race, and they're going to announce that they're going to crown a new NWA North American champion. Jeff Jarrett is going to be taking on Barry Windham, the former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And they do what Meltzer would call a terrible match, with Jarrett mainly clowning around rather than wrestling. And as Windham set up a superplex, Corluzzo distracted the ref. Cornette hit Windham with his tennis racket, and Jarrett is crowned champion. They do a big presentation in the ring with Cornette, Brody, and Corluzzo, and of course Jeff Jarrett. And then here comes Stone Cold. The first three get out of the ring. Jarrett doesn't see it coming. He gets the stunner. And of course, we all know famously Austin mocks the Jarrett strut. And
which is actually the Fargo strut, but go ahead.
Yeah. This whole thing is dead right away.
Dead in the water, baby.
My goodness. Like, don't get me wrong. I love the idea of Jeff Jarrett and Stone Cold having some sort of receipt for the promo and dust up and go to a program, but that doesn't happen in this segment where it feels like once upon a time, we're actually going to put some resources and effort into this. We're going to sign the real NWA world champion, and we're going to crown a new North American champion. And we're going to bring in these figureheads, and we're going to have Cornette cut these scathing promos. All right, here we go. Oh, never mind. Let's just dunk on it and have Austin just kill it right away. And then not build to a match with him and Jarrett. In hindsight, probably not the best idea.
No, and I don't think Austin had any interest whatsoever in working with Jeff.
So why does it happen? Like, why even let Stone Cold come kill it if we're not going to turn it into a match?
I think the deeper we got into the NWA content, the more that Vince felt it was not going to work.
Right.
So it cut it off.
Gotcha.
And that's what they did. And they used Austin as a tool, as a mechanism to cut it off.
Well, it is cut off. Deader than Kelsey's nuts, as somebody used to say.
Yes, sir.
Next up, we would see the Outlaws beat the Headbangers, and after the match, Cactus and Chainsaw come out, and Cactus does an interview introducing himself to WWF fans, saying he's going to bring blood and barbed wire into the WWF in 1998, and that his childhood hero is Chainsaw Charlie, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And then, of course, Chainsaw does what's described as being a Terry Funk style promo. Well, duh. And then we see even Don King do a taped interview on Raw that's really going to get the mainstream hype going for Mike Tyson. Was the deal always to have King appear? Was there, I think behind the scenes, there was some, hey, we'll do this, but not without Don King. And all of that maybe happened in the middle of this. Was there originally an idea that maybe Don King would be in Mike Tyson's corner for something and Vince McMahon would be in somebody else's corner or some sort?
No.
Okay.
We needed Don King for a soundbite.
Okay.
We needed Don King to get married on our TV back to Mike, which he had such a strong relationship with over the years. So no, Vince would never get in the ring with Don King because how do you trust him? You know, he's not trained. So, and Mike's not trained. So now you get all these untrained elements that you're trying to sell as a main event level match. And that to me is somewhat ridiculous to think that could even happen. So, but we got Don for as I recall, that was a pain in the ass.
Right.
You know, he's always wanted more. He wanted payday. All we want was a fucking promo. So, you know, I'm sure he got compensated, but it wasn't the payday that he probably was expecting or had saw big delusions of grandeur in his eyes.
Right.
So Don was a one-off, as best I recall.
Well, unfortunately, Doug Furnace is not long for the WWF. He's actually going to make a couple of appearances, I guess while he's still under contract with you guys for ECW, but apparently he was supposed to be Jeff Jarrett's opponent in that NWA match, not Barry Windham. But I guess there's some miscommunication. There's some sort of mix up because he doesn't see his name on the schedule and he leaves. And you guys are then scrambling to find Barry Windham as a substitute here. I know that reliability is a big thing, and I know that you were handling talent relations, but I also know that, hey, mix-ups happen and creative can change. Were you sort of wagging your finger at Doug about, hey, man, don't ever leave until the show's over? You never know.
Of course. He knew better, Conrad. He knew better. He didn't do it maliciously.
Right.
I'll show these guys. I'm not going to do the job. It wasn't none of that shit. He just didn't see his name on the sheet. And the agent who was going to have that match, the producer, the agent, whatever you want to call them, you know, they normally communicate with the guys that they're going to produce. Somebody didn't do that. So he thought he was clear to go. And so off he went.
Off he went indeed. The Nevada State Athletic Commission is something we're going to be discussing here because I think everybody remembers Mike Tyson got in a lot of trouble in 1997 when he bit the ear of Evander Holyfield. So he is a proven box office sensation and certainly a pay-per-view monster. But if he can't get licensed to box, well, maybe we can try something else. So that's sort of the genesis of the idea of, hey, what if we did something here with the WWF? But Meltzer would say that you guys are actually checking in with the Nevada State Athletic Commission just to see, is this going to risk his status? Did that feel like an unnecessary step? I mean,
no.
The idea that an entertainment company has to do this, but I still can't believe there are commissions that oversee wrestling in 2023. It seems stupid.
Well, one of my best friends on earth is Mark Ratner. Mark is now executive VP of the UFC. But for many, many years, he was the head of the Nevada State Athletic Commission. And he's a huge wrestling fan and a sweetheart of a man. We every time they're in this area, he comes by. I buy breakfast or he buys breakfast. We always enjoy talking. He's a former college football official, did the Cotton Bowl, big games, and just as a sweetheart of a man. We wanted to maintain a positive relationship. And we knew Mike was a lightning rod. And Mike had trouble seemed to follow Mike. We didn't want that to happen. We wanted everybody that was involved directly or indirectly into the Tyson project to have positive experiences. And who knows Mike Tyson and his entourage better than Mark Ratner?
Right.
So to me, it made sense. And that's why we were getting close to it wasn't to get him licensed to wrestle. My God, that would be an abortion. Pardon my language. And then you add Don King in his corner. Yeah, that's going to work.
Yeah, maybe not.
No.
Jacques Rougeau and Carl Pierre Ouellette were signed this past week and are likely to return as their Quebecers tag team, perhaps as early as the January 19th TV taping, according to the Wrestling Observer. And I got to say, Jim, this feels random and out of place. But then I think about it and I say to myself, we've always heard that Canada is a different place and that for whatever reason, Jacques Rougeau was over like Rover there. If we just lost our Canadian hero in Bret Hart, is this just worth a shot just because of his relationship with that audience? Is that the thinking?
No, we needed tag teams.
Okay.
And we needed heel tag teams. And Jacques and Pierre were a very, very good heel tag team. Jacques could be challenging to work with at times because he's a smart guy. He knew he was being worked or whatever. So no, I think we need to tag teams, and we expect those guys to come in, get over, and get the belts at some point in time. So, but to think that maybe there's a long shot that Jacques could replace Bret is a little bit drunk.
Right.
That ain't going to ever happen. They came in there, but they were a very good tag team, and hell, then no Pierre. I think they're both still working. I saw Jacques someplace I don't know where the hell. Maybe it was when we were doing TV in Canada. I looked on the calendar, man. We got a lot of Canadian stops in this year. It's this year, Conrad. This is 2023. Did you know my birthday is in 2 days?
I did know that.
As we record this.
I did know that.
Yeah, man. So I do accept cash gifts, and I'll give you an address at some point in time.
Well, I got your address. I sent you those Jordans a few years ago and booze last year, I think.
Yeah, man. You're a good gift. You're a good gift giver.
Hey, I try. Let's talk about some gifts you guys are going to be giving us. Sleazy celebrities is the way it's described. As we mentioned before, the WWF is planning on a theme of using sleazy celebrities at WrestleMania for their bad image. The only one we know who is accepted thus far is Pete Rose, who will probably be a timekeeper for one of the main events. Most any celeb with a seedy rep short of OJ will likely have been contacted. And we know we would reach out to Jennifer Flowers and Pete Rose and a handful of others. What do you think of leaning into that bad boy persona stereotype? I mean, is that good for the brand, or are you really more just embracing attitude at that point?
I think we're just trying to promote attitude.
Yeah.
I think the theme, attitudinal theme was going to be enhanced by the previously established reputations of the Jennifer Flowers, who was having sex with Bill Clinton, allegedly. And Pete Rose, of course, with his baseball betting scandal. You got to get Pete Rose back to take a tombstone from Kane, of course. I like that bit. Even though it was predictable and you knew what was coming, I didn't care. I was entertained by it. So I think it was just to promote the on-screen, the feel of the show. So, and that's kind of where I'm looking at that piece of business. But I thought it tied in well. I mean, it made it, at least there was a logical explanation as to why they're there. There's a reason for them being there. If the announcers and the producers could tell that story. So I had no problem with it. I thought it was kind of cool. It was fun to watch the celebrities from the outside come into the back or the locker room area and see how they react. And they're like children, most of them, looking around in awe and amazement. Or as my good old buddy Toby Keith says, the shock and awe.
Yes. Well, let's talk about the shock and awe that starts this go-home episode of Monday Night Raw before the big pay-per-view. Mark Merrill's going to come out with Goldust, who's dressed as Sable. That's right. Dustin Runnels is here in lingerie to wrestle Vader. Sable eventually comes out and starts yelling at Goldust for stealing her gimmick and kicks Goldust. It winds up with Goldust hitting Vader with a coconut that was stuffed in his bra. That's the DQ. 2 minutes and 56 seconds. I know Russo liked it, but Vince had to love this silly shit too. He likes the silly.
He does. He likes it very much. He loves toilet humor, or he did love toilet humor and off-color things, double entendres. So yeah, that's right down Vince's alley. He had fun. He probably had as much fun during this period of time as he had in either before or since, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
So, but it was that's just Vince. That's his sense of humor.
Well, I'll tell you something that my sense of humor that I love is I get a little chuckle when I open the door and there's a box from Jimmy's Famous Seafood.com.
Mm-hmm, Daddy.
They're shipping food nationwide for free when you use our promo code Jim Ross.
Can't beat it.
Jimmy's
I
Famous
love this company, Conrad.
Me too.
I love this company. They just have been so good to me, and Jan and I were regulars, and I never was disappointed. The crab cakes, and I'm a crab cake snob. They're the best I've ever had in my entire life, no matter where I traveled. Jimmy's Famous Seafood in Baltimore.
Check it out, jimmysfamousseafood.com. You get free 2-day nationwide shipping on orders over $125 when you use the promo code Jim Ross. Now, you might be asking yourself, why do I need to go to jimmysfamousseafood.com? Well, because you got to try the best crab cakes in the world. They will ruin crab cakes for you anywhere else. You'll never order them anywhere else ever again.
And tell them about the soup, Conrad. The soup is amazing.
The crab soup is something that Bruce Pritchard did for Christmas dinner. That's how good it is. Now, I had the mini stuffed shrimp and the crab balls, which is like a miniature crab cake. So Jimmy's Famous Seafood made me look good because I made them on the grill, I Rectech, and I brought them in. And my friends and family who were over for the holiday, they said, "Hey, did you make these?" And I lied my ass off and said, "You damn right. Did you not just see me pull them off the grill?" Well, Jimmy's Famous Seafood made me look good. They can also hook you up with oysters. Yes, oysters. And how about their signature steaks? Don't sleep on that. Some of the best prime rib, maybe the best prime rib I ever had, I got at Jimmy's. They got your desserts and your gluten-free items covered too. You can check out the famous gift box, which has 4 of the world's best colossal Maryland crab cakes, 2 different crab soups, crab dip, seafood seasoning, the signature bay sauce. Maybe in time for the NFL playoffs, you need a little tailgate bundle. They got that too. Wings and ribs and crab dip and a crab cake mix. Or maybe even just make your own package. These guys are the real deal. They are the wrestling restaurant in the world. The wrestling restaurant. I mean, literally, everybody in AEW eats at Jimmy's. Everybody in WWE eats in Jimmy's. And I don't just mean when they're in Baltimore. And I don't just mean when they're hosting parties. They do meal prep, y'all. A lot of the talent eat their food to keep them in the shape you see them on every single week because they got it at jimmysfamousseafood.com. Try it. See what you're missing out on. Promo code is Jim Ross. Enjoy that free shipping. Be sure to check them out. Anytime you turn on the Food Network, they're probably there. They've been on Beat Bobby Flay and Triple D and everything in between. Jim Ross is your promo code. jimmysfamousseafood.com is where you need to go. Take it from JR and I. We know where the good eating is, and it's at jimmysfamousseafood.com. So let's talk about the Rock and Roll Express. They're going to make their debut here. Yes, the Rock and Roll Express wrestled in the WWF, and Meltzer would say they looked positively ancient. And here's what's weird about that. Ricky Morton's only 41 years old, and Robert Gibson is only 40 years old. So these guys are 40 and 41, but it does look as if they've stepped out of a time machine because they're wearing their old classic Rock and Roll Express gear. And that brings about a question to me, because you take a look at some of the talent today, like Chris Jericho's in his 50s. And people don't just jump on and say, "Oh, well, he looks absolutely ancient." But it's because, in my opinion, he keeps evolving. He keeps changing. It's not the same Chris Jericho that we first maybe saw on Nitro or in ECW. But maybe there is something to the nostalgia act, because as a kid, man, I didn't want Hulk Hogan to change. I just wanted him to be red and yellow forever. And then, of course, we saw Hollywood Hogan. And then when he dusted off the red and yellow, it felt new again. Where are you at on being consistent with a character, evolving with the character, changing a character? How important is it, in your opinion, to either stay consistent or change with the times?
I think you got to stay consistent. Have you ever seen Austin wrestle in anything other than black tights ever.
Just jean shorts. I mean, just those jeans against
Right.
Owens. That's it.
The jorts.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in steering the course, quite frankly. So changing with the times. What does that mean? A new color?
Right.
You know. So yeah, dance with who brung you is a good expression. They use in football all the time. Dance with who brung you. So, hey, you know that quarterback for Georgia reminds me of Forrest Gump.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he seems like he's a little addled. But so much wins. He's the MVP of the last two big ones. So he's got one more to go. He seems to me like I watch so much football, my brain is incarcerated with pigskin. I think I need a pulled pork sandwich to get over it.
We could probably figure that out.
Yeah.
DX comes out, does an interview announcing Kane as their new member. Instead, Undertaker comes out, and Taker is, of course, distracted by Triple H. Shawn Michaels super kicks him. They double team on Taker until Kane makes the save, and they play it up big time that Kane is now turned babyface and joined Taker. And of course, we know that's not really going to be what happens.
Not for a while.
No. And the show ends with everybody sort of drawing numbers for the Royal Rumble. And instead, it turns into a giant battle royal to go off the air. And we're headed to San Jose for the Royal Rumble. We've got 325,000 buys for this show, which is 129,000 more than we had last year in San Antonio. This is 181,000 more buys than In Your House DX. It feels like that whole new year, new me bullshit was really real for the company here. My goodness, look how hot you are to get started.
Yes, it was encouraging.
Yeah.
Maybe we're on to something was kind of what we were thinking.
The last time
maybe we finally made the right turn on the right road and we're going the right direction.
325,000 buys here. The last time you broke the 300,000 number, you'd have to go back to WrestleMania 12 from 1996. So 22 pay-per-views had happened between WrestleMania in 96 to Royal Rumble in 98. And we never hit 300,000 one time, but now we do. And it's not necessarily a critically acclaimed show. The readers of the Observer only gave it 43.5% thumbs up and 38.4% thumbs down. But that's not what matters. What matters is we sold a bunch of freaking pay-per-views, the most we have in years. We sold out the building. We got 18,542 people here. 16,661 of them paid $414,373 at the gate. And most importantly, $159,000 in merch. Like, that is crazy compared to where you were just a year ago. And you were running a freaking dome. Here you're in an arena. This is a good night at the office, is it not?
Very good night at the office, Conrad. And certainly it was refreshing. And it shows you that many of the same names were being utilized at this show we're talking about right now, this Royal Rumble, that were used last year. They just the characters got developed more. Their storylines changed a bit, and they were recast, so to speak. Some of them got new paint jobs, but whatever it was, and time helps get some of these things over too. The more time you invested in Austin, the hotter he was going to get. We talk a lot about Austin here. He wins this Royal Rumble. He wins it for the second time in a row, as I recall, but you got to run with those guys because they can't stay hot forever. And things happen that you can't control, like injuries. So I really think that we were on the right course and give them as much Austin as we and they can handle.
Well, we gave him a bunch, and Meltzer loved it. He says the announcing, paying strict attention to the eliminations, having at least a semblance of a storyline, and being far more camera friendly, made this concept a total blow away from World War III's Battle Royal on the WCW side of things. Overall, Jerry Lawler was even more witty than usual, and Jim Ross, having a good show to call, showed he's still the most complete announcer in the United States, actually by a very wide margin.
Yeah, God damn it. I should be the winner of the award this year, and I know it'll be Excalibur again. I told him the other day, Conrad, I said, you know, you only got to win about 11 more of these awards to tie me.
I love you for that.
He's a good kid. I can't tell people. Someday I'm going to write about it in my next book that Paul O'Brien and I are doing right now. He's really a joy to be around, and he takes teachings, he takes suggestions as good as anybody I've ever worked with. So I'm glad I'm there and he appreciates my efforts, and for an old timer, he's the heir apparent. I'm not.
Right.
I've had my run, but I'm sure as fuck not ready for somebody on the internet to tell me I need to quit. That tells me a lot about your life that I don't need to be a part of. You know, don't find a way to quit. Quitting's the easiest thing in the world to get good at. I ain't planning on working on that skill set. So, anyway, I don't know where I was. I don't know where I got there. But anyway, it's just, I really like working with that kid, and he's going to be really, really good. Oh, Meltzer, the award thing. Yeah, I feel a little slighted.
Well, I think the artist formerly known as Goldust felt a little slighted when he's opening the pay-per-view in a losing effort to Vader. 7 minutes and 47 seconds. Meltzer would say both worked hard, but they were a little off. Actually, Goldust for the past few years has been a little off, although there were some good bumps and the match had a nice finish. Vader went up for the Vader bomb, and Luna did a running jump on Vader's back. Vader climbed the ropes with Luna on his back, and he did the Vader bomb with Luna on his back for added weight and got the pin. Star and a quarter. Listen, maybe the match is what it is, but the spectacle of the way Goldust is dressed, it's just unbelievable. And then the finish with Luna on Vader's back, that was super fun.
Yeah, it was creative as hell, I thought. Very creative and fun to watch. I'll say this about Goldust. He lived that character. He owned it. He perfected it. He added to it. He took away. He really committed himself to getting that unique and particular TV persona over. And I thought he did that well. I can't think of anybody that I've, known in my running crazy career that could have done that as good as Goldust. Others would have tried once they saw how he did it. But he created the whole thing, created the lineage, everything. So I'm a big Dustin Rhodes fan. He's been such a valuable asset in AEW, helping these, especially the young women, Green and men, as an agent. He's just really been a sweetheart. He's got a good school, so he's committed to the pro wrestling business, which I admire.
We got to talk about the next match because this is also fun, but this is one of those deals where I think about, Vader and then the crazy spectacle of Goldust in match 1. And then this is match 2. It starts to feel like that old Dusty Rhodes. A good wrestling card is like the circus. There's something for everybody. Well, we got Max Mini, Nova, and Mosaic taking on Battalion, Torito, and Tarantula.
Hey, how many of those names do you think I butchered?
All of them.
I tried.
Here's what's great about this. The guest referee is Sonny, and it's 6 guys that the crowd doesn't really know. Maybe they know Max Mini a little bit, but the other 5 guys, they have no idea who they are. But it's a lucha trios match made up of Mexican minis. And Meltzer would say the crowds these days are only into seeing TV stars, and these guys don't qualify. So it doesn't matter what they do, but they can't get heat. So they did one great acrobatic spot after another to get the crowd heat. And Max came off the top rope with a flying Hurricane Rana and then did a quick arm drag into a fast cradle for the pin. Jerry Lawler does a lot of Minnie's comedy in his commentary, including saying that Max tried to commit suicide by jumping off a curb. Tony seemed almost blown up by the end, trying to keep out of the way of the flying and being in the right position for her spots. 3.5 stars. Listen, I know that maybe the crowd wasn't super hot for it, but this feels fun.
Yeah.
We got a hot chick running around as the special guest referee. We got 6 guys who are wearing bright, colorful masks, and they're little fellas, and they can still do crazy stuff. I could see why this wasn't a staple of WWE programming, but I could argue that it was fun, and wrestling needs more fun sometimes.
It had a place. It had its place on this night in that position on the card. It fit.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the old Vince McMahon thing. You know, we got to let them up sometimes. Historically and traditionally, that match would have occurred later in a card to let me up, get back, you know, let me go to the bathroom. Let me make a sandwich real quick, whatever it may be. And we've had bodily functions and sandwiches talked a lot about in the show today. My pulled pork.
Yeah, we have.
I think I got to get a hold of Grubhub or somebody. Some of those damn companies, I don't know. But yeah, it was, you need that sometimes. Yeah. It's a matter of where it's placed and how far you go with it. And I thought that was a real good presentation. It was, like you said, it was colorful, it's unique, it was different. And wrestling fans, as I said many times, they love unique, they love different, they like new. And they got all that in that match.
Well, you're going to get something else in the next match. It's The Rock versus Ken Shamrock on pay-per-view, the first of many. They're going to have a trilogy of matches here, I guess. But this one goes 10 minutes and 53 seconds with Rock getting the win by DQ. Meltzer said this. Maivia, who actually spent his childhood living in this area when his father and grandfather were 2 of the top local baby faces, controlled most of the match. Since both are relatively inexperienced, there were some sloppy spots, such as both going for moves at the same time or hesitations, and the finish was a screw-up. The finish saw referee Mike Chioda distracted by the Nation of Domination. Maivia clocked Shamrock with the brass knucks and put the knucks in Shamrock's tights, but Shamrock kicked out at the pin. Shamrock then delivered a belly-to-belly and got the 3 count. Maivia told Chioda about the knucks in the trunks, and Shamrock went into his trunks and handed them to the ref, who then reversed his decision. Shamrock then gave Chioda a belly-to-belly and put him in an ankle lock as the other refs broke it up, similar to Shamrock's SummerSlam finish. I like this story. I know some people say, oh, it's overbooked, but that's what we're trying to do, is to get the heels heat. This checked all the boxes. I liked it. And I think Ken and Rock really had good chemistry together.
They did. They had good chemistry. They respected each other. 2 tough guys, 2 athletes, real athletes. So yeah, I thought it was a good presentation. You know, I not overwhelmed with the knucks and the tights thing. I don't hate it, and it worked. So if it worked, shame on me for even thinking it might not be good. It was. If it worked, it was good. Put it that way.
Next up, it's LOD and the New Age Outlaws. They're going to go to a DQ. LOD.
I hate that shit right there. Right there, you already turned me off this damn match.
What, a DQ?
Yeah, we just had one before the match before this.
Yes, we did. They set the stage here by saying Animal's been suffering from back spasms all day and was recommended not to wrestle. So Animal winds up working most of the match, and Meltzer says that's because Hawk isn't in shape yet. And eventually, we're going to see Jesse James use a chair and go for a pin, but it's instead going to get a DQ. And afterwards, they just destroy Animal. And Meltzer would say the match itself was better than you'd think, but the ending was particularly weak for a pay-per-view show. He gave it a 1.25 stars, and it sounds like you agree. We can't have all these DQs on a pay-per-view.
No, you don't need them. And that's what a great opportunity. You got a wounded LOD. You got one that we've said on the air has time to train, get back in shape, talking about Hawk. We have Animal who has existing serious back issues. They're wounded animals, and they couldn't get over the hump against a really, really good team, and that would have helped the New Age Outlaws immensely. Much better, in my opinion, than the disqualification.
Well, I want to help you get over the hump with Athletic Greens. My wife and I first started taking AG1 at the start of the pandemic because she wanted us to optimize our immune system. Well, we did that, and now we do it every day. Let me explain. What exactly is AG1? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens, all to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your focus, your recovery, your aging, all of your things. Think of it as like your all-in-one nutritional insurance. It's also lifestyle friendly, whether you're eating keto or paleo or vegan or dairy-free or gluten-free or sugar-free, whatever you want. This has less than 1 gram of sugar. No GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything. It still tastes good. I don't even know how they do that. Like, how does it have no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything, and still less than 1 gram of sugar and taste good? I'll never understand it. But here's what I do understand. It got me better sleep quality. It got me better mental clarity and alertness. And I also understand they have more than 7,000 5-star reviews.
That's impressive.
That means you don't have to take our word for it. It's not just good old JR and Connie here telling you to try something.
Yep.
We're recommending something that's verified. 7,000 5-star reviews. Right now, folks, it's time to reclaim your health. Arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Just a scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is visit athleticgreens.com/JR. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/JR to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Let's talk about while we're here. It's not the main event, believe it or not. It's the Royal Rumble. It's match 5, and Steve Austin is going to win what Dave describes as a 27-man Royal Rumble. It goes 55 minutes and 24 seconds. He's going to last eliminate. Well, who else? Rocky Maivia. It's so amazing to me. Before either one of these guys won a world title, they're feuding over the Intercontinental title. They're the last 2 in the Royal Rumble. It's so fun to see how it all evolved. Of course, it opens with Cactus Jack against Chainsaw Charlie. And the announcers here are actually referring to Chainsaw Charlie as Terry Funk. And this is because during the middle of the match, we even see Terry Funk raise up the pantyhose just to show, hey, in case you weren't sure, it's me, Terry. Rock comes out third, which means the Intercontinental champ is looking for a world title shot, which I like. And Meltzer would say it's kind of a funny moment. 8-Ball, who's one of the Harris brothers, comes out, and the crowd pops because at first glance, I guess they thought it was Steve Austin.
Ball head, here you go.
Yeah, here we go. Bradshaw is highlighted here as well. Of course, we've seen him as part of the new Blackjacks and all that. And you're going to point out on commentary that he just signed a 4-year extension, which is obviously a big deal. Owen's going to come out, but he's jumped by Jeff Jarrett and Jim Cornette.
God damn it, we got him.
Think about that. Owen Hart, instead of working with Shawn Michaels, is now cut off by Jeff Jarrett, who just got emasculated by Steve Austin.
Well, who booked this shit?
Yes, correct. Shamrock's in next. So they create an Austin storyline as Jerry Lawler is claiming that he's got info that Shamrock has beaten up Austin and Austin won't be able to come out. Cactus Jack gets eliminated, and we see Goldust come out. I can't believe this is real. He's going to throw Mankind out. I want to repeat that. Cactus Jack got eliminated, so now Mankind comes out. And, of course, eventually we know Dude Love's going to come out. The 3 faces of Foley. This is a great piece of creative business.
I like
one of the all-time classic Rumble moments.
Yeah, I like
Who
it.
deserves the credit for that, do you think? Is that a Russo thing, probably?
Might be.
Yeah.
It might be a Mick thing, too.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, you got a very creative guy that's written best-selling books and all that stuff.
No doubt.
Good stuff. He's creative as hell. So I wouldn't shortchange Mick on his contributions to the 3 faces of Foley. Quite frankly, he may have been the guy that created it. I don't know that. I'm not taking anything away from Russo. I just don't remember exactly. But to think Mick wasn't in the think tank equation would probably be erroneous.
I want to bring up Ahmed Johnson because he comes out and Meltzer would say, stunk up the joint. He says, although no worse than Mark Henry, who followed, since Henry at this point was working with Johnson, who may have gotten out of the doghouse with his attitude in camp, but he seems to have somehow actually gotten worse in the ring. Their stuff was hideous. I bring this up because Ahmed Johnson is coming back after you guys he's had an injury. You had him working some of the dojos and working the camps, and Meltzer was reporting great progress. He gets this moment to shine. It doesn't go well. And his last pay-per-view or his last appearance with the company is next month. No Way Out 1998. And this is a guy who, man, a couple years prior, people thought, well, he's on a trajectory to be one of our top guys. Was this sort of, all right, fool me twice, he ain't ready?
Right. We tried.
Yeah.
How many tries you need to get? And he did have all the intangibles. He had the look, he had the facial expression. You know, he was fairly athletic, but he just he seemed to be on this insatiable journey of doing it his way. And his way wasn't the right way.
Right.
He thought selling was a weakness, which is really shows how far off base a person is. Selling is one of the greatest attributes that a great pro wrestler has. They know how, when, and where to sell. Selling is so huge, but you have a handful of people that believe that, well, I'll look weak. I can't look weak. So you're saying you don't really know how to work.
Right.
So why are we using you? If you don't understand the concept and the artisan shift that it goes into selling, it's that important to me. So Ahmed just looked at like everybody was out to get him sometimes. And, you know, I don't know his background, and maybe that's all documented, and maybe it's well understood. He didn't have the easiest of upbringing. I don't know for sure. I think that maybe have a play in it. But yeah, he was it just wasn't going. We tried. Even from the days when Cowboy Bill wanted to name him Buck Johnson.
Right.
That's not black. Buck Johnson. Pork Chop Cash. All these white promoters. Bobo. PP.
Oh, goodness.
It's crazy how the stereotypes, because you got all the decision makers and the creative decision makers are all white males.
Right.
You think they're going to give great respect to a name of a African American in those generations? Shit, no. You know, I was lucky to be around a very outstanding black wrestler named Tom Jones. You know, he had a name. You know, it wasn't Sweet Daddy, or it wasn't some attempted hip name by a white guy. I'm glad that those days are gone. I hope anyway. Somebody's going to point out there's one out there. Well, what about this, JR? I don't know. I'm just an idiot. I'm old. I'm going to quit.
Well, don't do that. But I'm sure Jack Doan wanted to quit when Mark Henry throws Phineas out, who lands right on Jack Doan's head.
That's good.
Doan is legitimately rushed out of the building in an ambulance because they're fearing that he has a concussion or maybe worse. It's a pretty scary moment when you see something like this happen. This is the only injury on the show. Do you remember Jack Doan being in a bad way here?
Yeah. You know, of course, the show's ongoing, so you have no way of getting a medical report as he's being driven to the hospital. Just hopeful that he's okay, and luckily he was. But it looked bad.
The crowd is sort of dead for most of the Rumble, and then at 38 minutes in, the glass breaks, and the pop for Steve Austin is unbelievable. He tosses out 8-Ball, Henry Godwin, the Bariquas, Thrasher, Kama, Savio, Chains, Farouk, just one after another. This is pretty amazing to see the evolution of Steve Austin. You know, he starts to get hot after the 1996 King of the Ring. He has that feud with Bret Hart to end 1996. He carries it through 1997, steals the show at WrestleMania. Feels like he has all the momentum in the world. But then in August, it looks like, well, it's over. Owen dropped him on his head, and we don't know what to do. But it almost became a blessing because he got to stun you and Vince and all the other craziness. And now when we get to see him in action, fans are ready for it, dude.
Oh, they were waiting. They were waiting on the edge of their seat. They knew what was coming. So they just didn't know when it was coming. But that was a pop. That's a pop you'll never forget, quite frankly.
It's all smiles except for Farouk. Here's what Meltzer has to say. Farouk was supposed to boot Henry out of the ring, and he didn't go over. And Farouk, not realizing he didn't leave, just walked away, figuring the spot was over, rather than giving him another move to eliminate him. Well, Henry just stood there, confused, not knowing what to do, which at this point you could hardly blame him for. And then he just sheepishly jumped out of the ring.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Highly awkward. And it was embarrassing. Those guys learned a good lesson in that exchange. And don't assume nothing.
We know when it's all said and done, it's going to be Steve Austin's day. He last eliminates Maivia, gives him a stunner, throws him over the top rope, gets 2.5 stars. The pop is just freaking gigantic, huge. And meanwhile, we take a look and see Mike Tyson in one of the luxury boxes at the arena sitting with Shane McMahon. He's cheering on the baby faces and really lets everybody know that he's here to see Cold Stoned. And in the main event, we're finally here. Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker in a casket match. Shawn retains after 20 minutes and 37 seconds. Meltzer would say, real good work by both, Michaels in particular. Michaels took one incredible bump early, taking a backdrop over the top rope and cracking his lower back on the casket as he went over. He was really lucky he wasn't hurt on that one. Of course, Meltzer didn't know that, he's hurt for real.
Yeah, he was.
When did you know, hey, that wasn't just a bump. This is a real issue. Did you know that night? Or was it a few days later?
After the show.
Yeah.
He couldn't bend over. He couldn't touch his toes. He was, as Granny would say, he was stoved up.
Right.
You knew something was wrong, but you didn't know to what degree it was wrong. So absolutely, it was scary. It's really scary. That lower, the back is such a delicate thing. That's why guys, when they go to wrestling camps, they neglect sometimes on how many flat back bumps they're taking because they think they got it down and they don't need to practice anymore. And if you stop and think about it, taking your flat back bump safely is how important it is, simply because you do it so often. And it's an abnormal move. It's something that's your body's not built for. So in order to cushion it and to make it better, you got to be able to take a great flat back bump. If I said that right, flat back bump. And it should be in every wrestling school. It should be a daily drill. But guys they want to get on the top rope. They want to do flips and flops and flies. That don't mean shit anymore. It meant something when not very few people were doing it. And then when they were doing it as a finish. Now it's a fancy high spot, and it doesn't have the impact that it had just a few years ago. That's just my take on it, Connie.
Well, let's talk about the finish of the match here. It looks like Shawn Michaels is going to be in a losing effort because Undertaker does a one-arm choke slam and then a tombstone, and the tombstone goes from the apron into the casket. And at that point, China knocks down the referee, and here come the Los Boricuas and the New Age Outlaws. They all attack the Undertaker. Kane's music plays, and he cleans house. And Meltzer would say an explosion was supposed to go off to set the stage for his turning on Taker, but there was a screw up on the spot, and Kane turned on him and punched him a few times before chokeslamming him into the casket. Michael shuts the lid. There's the victory. But after it's all said and done, Paul Bearer, who had been kept off the road for a few weeks to build for this return, came out and locks the casket. Kane takes an axe, starts chopping away, pours gasoline all over it. Paul Bearer lights it on fire, and the show goes off the air with The Undertaker being burned alive here. 3.5 stars. A similar finish to what Yokozuna did with The Undertaker at a Royal Rumble casket match before, but now with fire. Instead of The Undertaker just flying to heaven here, like he did against Yokozuna, we go off the air with, a fiery inferno. Crazy, dude.
Yeah, it's very subjective. You're either going to like that outlandish stuff or you're not.
Right.
I thought it fit okay. I didn't kill me because those guys had a hell of a match. They really did have a good match. And I don't think that the finish it was a hell of an elaborate stunt. And so it didn't adversely affect me as some theatrical angles have. And but I thought it was good. The match before it was what made it special. They had a hell of a match leading into it. So all in all, because of that match and Austin winning the Rumble, I thought we had a hell of a show.
It was a hell of a show. I mean, you think about Mike Tyson being on this show, and you think about just the injury in the main event, and we sort of punched Austin's ticket. We got the really fun 3 Faces of Foley in the same Royal Rumble. It's a very memorable show.
Yep.
And I'm glad we got to talk about it today. Next week, though, we're going fast forwarding 5 years. Royal Rumble from Boston, 2003 is what we'll talk about. One of the worst title matches in WWE history, Scott Steiner and Triple H. Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit is on that card as well. The build for Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho is there. You're actually going to be in a tag team match with Jerry Lawler against Lance Storm and William Regal.
Yeah, set the business back to about 50 years.
Well,
that was a Russo idea, I'm pretty sure. All right, and if Vince heard any idea that could mildly humiliate good old JR, that son of a bitch is booked.
I don't think that was a Russo idea. I don't think he was there in 03. But we're going to talk about that next week.
Let's get to the bottom of this. Remember those commercials on TV, those insurance commercials with Andy Reid? I'm going to get to the bottom of this.
He left in October of 99, so He was gone. But you know what? What else might be nice going? All that credit card debt. If you racked up any credit card debt over the holiday, or maybe you're thinking, hey, I need a New Year's resolution to save money, can I recommend savewithconrad.com? Let's throw 2 house payments over the top rope. Let's eliminate them from your rumble with credit card debt. We're routinely helping our podcast listeners restructure their debt. Here's what I'm talking about. Once you owe this debt, maybe it's a second mortgage, a car loan, a credit card, it's up to you how to pay it back. If I knew a way to get you a better interest rate and a lower monthly payment and show you how to pay your house off faster and get out of debt faster, why wouldn't you do that? Go right now to savewithconrad.com. Find out how much money you can save for free. And how's this for starters? No house payments for 2 months. If you haven't already paid your January house payment, I can make it to where you don't have to, or your February payment either. How about that? We routinely help our podcast listeners save $500, $600, $700, $800 a month, and you can do it too. It's not rocket science. If you got credit card debt, you got a second mortgage, if you're in a 30-year loan, it's not a matter of if I can save you money, but a matter of how much. And I also want to mention, we are the home of the 7-year guarantee, meaning if rates change or your needs change at any point in the next 7 years, we'll refinance you again without charging you a whole new set of new closing costs. We're going to get rid of your origination. That's going to save you thousands of dollars. Plainly said, it's going to give you the peace of mind of knowing you got the best deal for your family right now. And if your needs change, we got your back. So you're going to get a cheaper monthly payment. What's wrong with that? Go to savewithconrad.com right now. NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. And I also want to mention, hey, don't take my word for it. Go check us out right now, conradreviews.com. You'll see we've got an A+ rating with the BBB. And you'll also see that our average rating is 4.72 stars. Means it's pretty good.
Yep.
Conrad.com.
Good job, Conrad. Good job. Good stuff.
We're going to be pretty good next week when we talk about 2003. But we're good right now because we went to jrsbbq.com. And as you and I are talking today, it is New Year's Day. And there is a tradition in the South that you eat certain things on New Year's Day. Mom's got the cabbage. Mom's got the black-eyed peas. Mom's got the mashed potatoes. She's got the pork chops. And the pork chops are seasoned with, come on now, say it with me, the all-purpose seasoning.
Yeah. And also, I'll contribute to that by adding some JR's red-ass hot sauce.
On the greens, hard to beat.
Yeah, there you go. Now you're talking money. That's orgasmic eating. Just out of this world.
Check it out. They got Chipotle ketchup. They got Main Event mustard. 2 types of sauce, original and hot. You got the jerky. You got the red ass, JR's red ass hot sauce. My favorite is still the all-purpose seasoning. I'll never get tired of it. I'll brag about it every chance I get. And I know that you've probably had a bottle before and you put it on a shelf next to your wrestling belts and figures. And Roll Tide, thank you for your business. But if you just come take a look and order 2, one to enjoy, one to display, it will create what our old pal JR calls a reorder situation. JR'sBBQ.com is where you need to go. They've got something for everybody, and I mean it. If you're looking for books, if you're looking for action figures, if you're looking for trading cards, but most importantly, the reason everybody comes is the seasoning. It's the hot sauce. It's the ketchup. It's the mustard. It's the barbecue sauce. It's JR'sBBQ.com. It costs nothing to look, and they're running promos all the time. As I'm looking at it right now, there's a promo where you can get free ketchup. Free ketchup. How do you beat that? Just go to JR'sBBQ.com, and you're going to enjoy the bowl season. You're going to enjoy the championship game. You're going to enjoy the playoffs. You're going to enjoy the Royal Rumble the way it was supposed to be, with good barbecue, good flavored food, thanks to JR'sBBQ.com.
Yeah, appreciate it, Conrad. I was going to tell you something. It must not have been very important, but I appreciate you plugging that stuff. It's really, business has been good. And we work every day at that site. You know, we have a crew that they don't have any days off. And because they like working there and they enjoy what they're doing, they don't ask. So if you don't raise your hand, I don't know what you're hurting. So they're just keep plugging away and shipping and trying to stay up with everything. So we appreciate everybody's business. And you know, we sold real quick the action figures. I signed a bunch of action figures, and that made a real nice gift. Really cool looking packaging and all that stuff. So it's all well and good. And don't forget, Friday night, I'm going to be on, I think, 2 hours on TNT. Rampage followed by Battle of the Belts.
Yes, sir.
That's going to be on Friday night, and I hope you'll check it out, folks, if you get a chance. And I don't know what's booked yet, but I know that the cards have noticeably gotten more exciting and better on Friday nights than in recent months. At least that's my take. And I got a dog in the hunt, so I want it to do great, not good, great. And so we need your support. Just tune in, join us, and we'll try to entertain you and call a wrestling match.
Last year's Battle of the Belts had Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes, Ricky Starks and Matt Sydal, Britt Baker and Riho. That was last January's. This January's, I know we got Orange Cassidy and Kip Sabian. Can't wait to see what the rest of it is. But it's 2 hours this Friday night. You don't want to miss it. TNT is the place to be, where you get to hear the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
Thank you very much, Conrad.
All things All Elite. By the way, if you haven't already, watch our show on YouTube. You get to see JR's facials and reactions to some of the silly shit I'll bring up to him. It's Grilling JR on YouTube.com. That's Grilling JR on YouTube.com. You see all of our handles there as well. Love to have your interaction with the show. It's at JR Grilling on Twitter and Instagram. It's Grilling JR on Facebook, but it doesn't get any easier than Grilling JR on YouTube. And man, I'm looking forward to next week's Royal Rumble discussion. I'll never forget thinking how, less than that Triple H Scott Steiner match was. I grew up a huge Scott Steiner fan. I really wanted that one to be the one, and it just wasn't.
That wasn't it. That wasn't it for you. It wasn't it. Yeah, try calling it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Can't shine doo-doo.
Well, we're going to try. We're going to try to shine it up next week real good. Hope everybody had a happy new year, and I hope everybody had a great Christmas season. And we're excited to be back, man, because January usually means one thing around these parts. It's Royal Rumble season. And we'll see you next week right here on Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
And I'll see everybody Friday night on Rampage in the Battle of the Belts. Thanks for joining us.
TNT is the place to be. See you next week.